Hey, what's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. It's episode number 48. Talked about it last week. Austin is off this week. He's traveling. He's down south and can't make it for this week's episode. So we said, you know what? Rather than me just ramble on by myself, nobody wants to hear that. Let's invite a person who has been on the show before, but not necessarily in this capacity. But let's invite this person on to actually be a co-host of the show. So this person will be the first ever co-host outside of myself or Austin. So we're just gonna bring them in here in just a second. I'm gonna read a little bit about them. You guys are gonna know who it is right away. They're one of our all-time favorite guests, and we absolutely mean that. She has been this will be her third appearance actually on the show. She was part of an episode that we did earlier, and then she was part of our live show. She has her own podcast, Marie Plays It All podcast, which is part of the NotAStrongStart Podcast. And you guys have seen her on this, on our program before, you know that. And we're really excited to get her on. She is our friend from Canada, further north than we even are. And let's bring her on. Marie, welcome to the show. What is going on? Thank you for being our first ever guest co-host, I should say, of the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I'm like tearing up. Your nice words you were saying. I'm our favorite guest. And oh my gosh, I'm in the studio crying.
Well, you are. We were just talking about this just a minute ago before we came on the air that you've been on a lot of podcasts now. I mean, you obviously you have your own podcast, but you are becoming more and more a guest on other people's podcasts. So how cool is that? I mean, just get to randomly talk about horror movies or whatever it is that you guys might be talking about. It's kind of exciting.
It's always fun, and whenever somebody asks me, I'm always like, heck yeah, like I'm coming on. If I have any chance, like meet new people and talk about horror in any capacity or anything like that, I'm there. So I love doing this. I'm honored that you asked me to come do this, and I loved being on your show. It was so fun, and I'm excited. It's exciting.
But like I said, you were our first choice. Austin and I were talking about it, and we were like, man, let's get Marie on. She can co-host this thing with us. I mean, this is perfect. So might not be the last time. It might not be the last time. We'll just have to see. Heck, if this episode goes really well, I might just not invite Austin back. He might just have to come back week after week, and we'll just kick him out. But no, Austin will be back next week. For those of you who like Austin, I guess I like Austin, but Austin will be back next week. Like I said, he's traveling for work. Before we get too deep into the episode, is there going to be any tension between us tonight as far as some of the remarks that I made on the podcast last week about your all-time favorite film, or at least Halloween film, Halloween H2O? Do we need to just get that out of the way right now?
You need to clear the air. I remember watching it, and your hot take was that Halloween H2O is the most overrated, right, of the whole Halloween franchise.
That's what I said.
Okay. Yep. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I did instantly message him and say, you know what? I can't come on the show anymore. Just never mind.
Right. Exactly. It was so, Austin and I didn't know what each other's hot takes were going to be for that episode. And when I was writing that one, I knew it was going to immediately anger a lot of people. And you were one of the first person that I thought of, or that, that came to my mind when I was thinking that, or when I was writing it, because I'm like, I know she's a huge fan of the film. And realistically, I am too, right? I mean, we've talked about this before on the show that I love all the Halloween films, even the ones that are just like absolutely terrible. I still love them. They hold a place in my heart. But yeah, I was like, we're gonna stir the pot a little bit with this. But you did comment that you liked my my Laurie Strode kind of watering down the David Gordon Green trilogy. Is that, do you kind of agree with that a little bit?
I 100% agreed with it. I don't like at all what they did with her character. This is again why I don't think the Halloween show is overrated, and why I love it so much is I think that's my favorite interpretation of Laurie Strode. That's my favorite portrayal of Laurie Strode, is that movie. And I like what you guys said. Like in the first one, she is a little bit dull, and then in the new trilogy, she's pointless. She shouldn't even be in it, but they did to her character. They butchered her character, and they just wanted her to get people in the seats and for money, because honestly, they didn't need her. They didn't.
No, and it's so funny because we received so many messages about last week's episode and those hot takes, which if you've not seen that episode, go check out episode 47. We kind of give our hot takes, our opinions, if you will, on things that might upset a group of people who are really passionate about those topics. But we received a lot of feedback on the Laurie Strode comments, and it's just sort of funny that, Laurie Strode is this final girl, right? She is the ultimate final girl. But there were a lot of people that were really not happy with the way that her character turned out in that last trilogy. And for me, I think when I look back at it, if they would have, even if she had come back for 2018, right? If she was in 2018, but Michael got her, right? Or she dies at the beginning of Kills or whatever it was, and they had continued on with maybe the Allison story or whatever it might be, I feel like that would have just done so much more for that trilogy.
I absolutely agree. Especially as there's no point in her being in Halloween Kills. They kind of did the whole Halloween 2 thing with her in Halloween Kills. And I think that if they were going to have her in this trilogy, the new trilogy, they should have kept the brother and sister storyline, which would have made so much more sense. She has a purpose. Michael has a purpose. There's a purpose for them to meet. Their showdown actually has meaning. It doesn't have meaning in this one. And yeah, I agree.
Well, that's good. Well, I do apologize for knocking H2O. It's the first Halloween film I ever saw, so it does hold that special place in my heart. But I'm glad that we can agree on the Laurie Strode thing, at least with the David Gordon Green trilogy. And I will say, if a highlight of mine of H2Os is the fact that Laurie Strode is what you would expect maybe that character to be 20 years after the events of 1978, whereas this Rambo Laurie is just. It's just too much, right? So I definitely probably, agree with you there. And what's fun is we're going to be talking, and Marie knows nothing about the details necessarily of this episode, but we're going to be talking about another film, a lost film, if you will, that was never made, that was originally going to be the before H2O became H2O. It was originally going to be part 7. And we're going to be going through some of the details of that on this episode. And I'm really excited to get your take on this, because as a diehard H2O fan, when we go through this, I think you'll see a lot of reasons why this film was not made. But I'll be very curious to see what your opinion is of it. If you would have liked to have seen this, or if you're ultimately happy with H2O. And I probably already know what direction that you're going to lean, but we've referenced, have you read the Taking Shape books, I should say? Have you read those at all?
I haven't.
They're awesome. They're so cool. We've referenced them on the show before. That they're by Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullins. And we had us and I both read these books, and part Taking Shape 1 is essentially all about like the making of these films, going through all the way up until I think the 2018 film. I think that was the only, or the Kills and Ends were not a part of these books. But then there's Taking Shape 2, which was all about these unmade Halloween sequels where they broke down these scripts and took a deep dive into them. So that's where this information is coming from tonight. For those of you who've read this, you're going to already have or have read these books. You will know this story somewhat. But since Marie has not, we're going to talk a little bit about this tonight. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So this film was originally going to be called Halloween 7: Two Faces of Evil. The script was written by Robert Zappia. Now, Robert Zappia, I believe, and you would know this, is he still connected with H2O? Was he a writer or a credited writer, I think, in H2O?
Oof.
That's okay if you don't know.
It sounds familiar. Like maybe I should know this. I'm like a huge fan, but I don't know.
That's all right. No, and I think he was, for some reason, his name. I feel like he's like a credited writer or something like that. But so he was originally tasked with writing this initial script, this Two Faces of Evil script. But what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to do a lot of reading. Marie is going to digest this. We're going to chat about it. We're going to talk about it. And ultimately, you guys let us know what you think. Would you have liked to have seen this film be made? Are you happy ultimately with that final H2O version that we got? Or are you happy, I should say, with that final H2O version? But so there was a lot going on when this script was written. Obviously, we're talking post Halloween 6. And I don't remember, are you a 6 fan?
Okay, I'm not like a huge, but I do like 6. I do like Paul Rudd in it too. I like his portrayal, and that was that Austin.
That was Austin's. Yeah, blame him. Yeah, Blame him.
And you said that you relate to him, and I was just like, oh, like,
right.
Well, I love him in that movie.
Yeah, because it was funny, and we had talked about this on an earlier episode, and I don't remember what episode it was, but Austin's like, hey, if you could like picture yourself as any character from the entire Halloween franchise, like a character that you relate to, who would you be? And I'd be like, I think probably like the Paul Rudd character from 6. Like he's just kind of I don't want to say quirky. I mean, I am quirky, but I mean, he's like obsessed with this one thing, and he's just so into it. And I'm like, I think that would be who I could potentially see myself being. And yes, he completely like slapped me in the face with that answer by saying it was whatever he said. But whatever, he's wrong. That's why he's not on the show tonight. He's wrong. I actually gave him a vacation. That's why he's here or not here. But anyway, so there was a lot going on behind the scenes. Part 6 had just taken place, had come out. The wine scenes were very involved in the franchise at that time. And Fangoria, a Fangoria writer, actually said after 6 was released that, quote, the only thing scarier than Halloween 6 is the idea that another sequel will be made. I mean, I wonder if that dude is eating his words now or what, but I mean, it's like, I'm sure he had to have known at that point that there were going to be more sequels, right?
You'd think so. You know what? Maybe he's not eating his words. Maybe he still thinks he was right and there shouldn't have been. Who knows?
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point. I mean, and I'm sure there are fans out there or other horror fans out there who agree with that, and I guess we hear them where they say that they don't want any more Halloween films, and not my take, but anyway, so Robert Zappia kind of comes into the picture. And he at that point was a sitcom writer, which is really strange. He wasn't writing horror movies. He wasn't doing anything, but he was this sitcom writer, and had been doing like a lot of like theater writing and things like that. But he was told that he could take this story, the Michael Myers story, in any direction that he wanted to. Now, I think at this point, and you would probably know more about this than I would, but I don't, Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm sure had not even been approached at this point. There was no talks of her returning. And I think ultimately when this script was eventually scrapped, it was because, you had this return of Jamie Lee. But the story opens up in Norfolk, Illinois on October 28th, 1998. So again, we're talking 20 years after, after the events of 1978. With a babysitter named Deborah Riley. And she ends up getting murdered by this sort of unknown assailant. You don't see what happens, but she gets murdered in this bedroom. So we kind of, what I liked about that is you almost have a very similar opening, even though Judith Myers wasn't a babysitter, but you have a very like similar sort of nod to that original, which I think is really cool. But so Detective Richard Kincaid, who I believe is the detective's name at the beginning of H2O. Can you confirm? Can you deny? I have no idea. I would have to rewatch it, but I think Kincaid is the guy. Does that sound right?
It sounds right.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it is right, but it sounds right.
We're going to go with it because we both think it's Detective Richard Kincaid. But anyway, he's assigned to this case. He's assigned to try to figure out what happened with this young girl being murdered. And based on the fact that it was a babysitter murder, who does he assume it is? He assumes it was Michael Myers. Now, what's really interesting is that they don't explain this, but Michael had said Michael was in captivity or had been captured and was in prison for the last 3 years prior to this. So that would make sense because you have the H6 story ending and then this taking place 3 years later. But it's interesting, like that idea that they would connect and tie those two in, because I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, they really just disconnect themselves from 4, 5, and 6 with H2O, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they don't exist. That's a different timeline.
Right, exactly. And so what do you think of that idea? Do you like the idea that they are trying to continue this on as one full franchise, or do you like the idea of having it being broken up? I mean, knowing what we know now, obviously, with the latest trilogy, but at that time, would you have liked to seen that sort of continue, or at least, there be some sort of acknowledgement of that?
Yes. I mean, it was the different timelines pretty confusing. I remember because when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of 4 and 5 and 6 too, but 4 and 5 especially. And I remember being really confused when I first saw H2O and thinking, okay, well, did she have her daughter? Like, is this related at all? Like, and then to find out later that it wasn't, it was like, oh, okay. But then because I loved H2O so much, I kind of forgave him. Oh, there's different timelines. Oh, it's all right. But I would have liked to see a continuation. Would be nice to see. And I mean, they still could do it technically. They still could do it.
Yeah, you're right. They could. Yeah, I mean, because there would be. I feel like there's a way to always draw back to any of these films, and that's kind of where I think we're at a really cool point in the entire franchise that they can take it anywhere they want to, right? And if they want to go back to that Thorne trilogy, or they want to go back to even just the Jamie Lloyd character, whatever that is, they can come back to that, which is so we're kind of in a unique spot. But I would agree with you in what you just said, that it was confusing, even though, H2O was the first film that I saw of the franchise, but then immediately like getting into them after that, realizing that, hey, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. It was confusing to me as a, 13-year-old kid or whatever I was at the time. But so Kincaid, his partner kind of scoffs at the idea, just saying, hey, Michael's been locked up. We actually get this whole scene where they show Michael in prison, and they show Michael collapsing, and Michael has this medical emergency. Now, I didn't write this down, and I wish I had, but I'm pretty sure they even reference that Michael is still in prison with the mask, which is really weird. I don't know why you would do that. It was weird enough when you saw that in part 5, like at the end when he's sitting in the jail cell and he's like playing with the chains. But apparently Michael is still in the mask in this story, even though he's been in prison for 3 years. But anyway, Michael has this medical emergency, and he collapses. They find no pulse. So obviously, the doctors in these stories are never any good. They say he's dead. And what do? What always happens? Michael always gets transported when? Right before Halloween, right? So
yes,
that's what happens here is Michael gets transported. And during the transport, much like, part 4, much like in 2018, he comes back to life, or, he becomes Michael again. Right. And he ends up killing the workers. And this is kind of a little bit like, I wonder if Rob Zombie didn't pull a little bit from this for part 2, but he basically steals the hearse, in this case, not a coroner's van, but he steals the hearse that he's being driven around in. He kills the workers, steals the hearse, and he takes off. And obviously people know he's out, and there's this, craziness that's going on. But so he kills these 2 funeral home attendants. And he then drives to this drugstore and now this was a little bit confusing to me, but he drives to a drugstore and he gets the coveralls and then a new mask, which we've never really seen. I mean, granted, now you had the mask he was wearing in prison, which is weird. And that would have never worked. Like, nobody would have ever believed that, but we've never actually seen him like get a new mask. I don't think. Is that right? We've never seen him get a new mask if he's already had an old mask. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
You have not seen that. No.
So anyway, he goes to this school called Hillcrest Academy, which, so we're starting to see some of the, these parallels that are coming in between what we saw in H2O and obviously this script as well. But he begins stalking his 2 main victims, these 2 students, Joanne Whittington and Linda Kang, who were there working on, or who are at the school, and they're working on this Halloween dance. Now, I love the idea of there being a Halloween dance in these films, because you obviously get that in the 2018 film. You get this awesome Halloween dance, but I just think it's like a cool idea. I feel like I've talked about it on the show too, like the barn, there's the barn scene in part 5. And then like you get this Halloween dance in 2018. It just feels so Halloween. I love that feeling.
It doesn't. It would have been good to see that in like a 90s version,
right,
with like 90s type music and stuff like that. Like that would have been cool.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's I like, that was one of the things that I wrote down that I really liked about this, was that there was this, that was kind of like a huge part of the plot of this film, was that this Halloween dance was going on. These two girls were very involved in the planning of it and that kind of thing. So I thought that was really cool. But police uncover that that there was a suspect. They have a suspect now. They've determined that Michael Myers didn't kill this babysitter at the beginning of the film, but that it's a magician. A magician named Cain Gabriel, who as I was making my notes, I kept writing Peter Gabriel, like from I legit, like, I crossed out on my notes like 3 times. I kept writing Peter Gabriel, but Cain Gabriel. Yeah.
Okay. So biblical stuff though, like the angel Gabriel and Cain and Abel, like they added some like biblical stuff in there for some reason. The magician though. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought about that, but you're right. 2 very biblical names, with Cain Gabriel. But, this Cain Gabriel character, the police have a long history with him. They know who he is, and he is also obsessed with Michael Myers. Okay, so we're starting to build our story up here a little bit, and the reason why Cain is a suspect is because he had actually just performed a magic show at this this Deborah Riley, who was murdered at the beginning of the movie. Her little brother was having a birthday party, and this Cain Gabriel was the magician. Okay, so this is where I'm starting to feel like, and I don't know if you're picking up on this, but this is where I was like, this is getting weird. I mean, I get they want to tell this story, but having like this magician be part of all this, it was weird to me when I was reading through this.
Well, the thing that actually made me like the magician aspect a little more is that he was performing for a kid's party. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So is he not like a big time magician? He's just like a starting out at a kid's party. That's kind of creepy. That's
He's rolling up in the van. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at a kid's.
That is true.
That's a little bit creepy. Okay.
That is true. That's very true. So so he was at this birthday party earlier, the day before, whatever it might be, and so they're now suspecting that this is their guy. So soon after, they find out that he was already in custody for something else, which the script doesn't say what. I thought that was very interesting. And Travis Mullins and Dustin McNeil actually pointed this out, that they don't Robert Zappia didn't do a good job of explaining what he was actually in custody for, but that there was, he was in custody at the time that this happened. So now we're starting to backtrack a little bit. And now they're going, okay, well, was it Michael Myers? Nope, he was in prison. Okay, it wasn't this Cain Gabriel guy. And so they keep on this this police investigation that they have going on. And so later on, this Joanne character, who is essentially one of our main characters at this point, she's one of the victims that Michael is trying to stalk. She tries to leave campus, but she's caught by the head master of the school. So once again, very similar ties to what we saw with H2O. And she is banned from the Halloween dance. She can't do this thing anymore. Right. So very, once again, similar to, similar, but different as far as you didn't have a Halloween dance in H2O, but you had this trip that was happening, right? They had their big camping trip. They're going to Yosemite, I think, right? Yosemite is where they were going. Yeah. So they were going to Yosemite. The 4 teens come up with this. There are different reasons of why they can't go, but you now have, in this case, this Halloween dance that's happening, and she can't partake because she got caught trying to sneak out. So there are some parallels here to the H2O storyline. But soon after, the detectives discover that Michael Myers had a tracking device that was on his ankle. So some sort of a tracking device that he had on him when he died, supposedly in prison. And they begin to track him down. And the device eventually leads them to these woods, and they find a couple of the victims that are like stuffed in this not the coroner's van, but the now I'm blanking on it, the hearse. So they find these victims in the hearse, and I put a note here that it should be noted that Cain Gabriel is with them when they find the body. So they start to use the Cain Gabriel character as a guy to somehow track Michael down. And this is where the story just is really starting to sort of unravel, right? And you're starting to see all these holes that are getting punched in this thing. But so they find this hearse. Michael is nowhere to be found, but they find this tracking device with the hearse, so they know Michael is close. And this is right near the school. Okay, so Michael has been led essentially to this school.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes as you're talking. I have things I want to talk about. Okay,
perfect.
I'm listening.
So Halloween Day arrives, and the Shape continues to stalk the students at Hillcrest. Moving from girl to girl. And later that night, Detective Kincaid and Gabriel. They discover that the missing hearse. Oh, I'm sorry. I already talked about this. So the missing hearse is in the swamp. I'm backtracking a little bit. So they find out that the dance is now happening. So this is Halloween night. The dance is happening. And of course, Michael's doing his thing. He's killing students and he's, bouncing around the school, which once again, I really like that idea of there being this Halloween dance. Right. And so let's see here. They then track the Shape to Hillcrest Academy. The Shape murders Linda. Okay, Linda and her boyfriend. So one of our two main sort of characters, she gets murdered off, and this happens in the school kitchen. So once again, another kind of tie into H2O. And then the Shape sneaks off to try to track down Joanne. And they don't explain this either, why he has this obsession with Joanne. And I think it kind of brings up like a good talking point. Do you like the Michael Myers with reason, or do you like the Michael Myers with no reason as to why he's after these people?
I like the reason every time. I think it adds passion, and I think passion killing is just so much more impactful. Right. And it's like that obsession. Otherwise, I don't find it as deep or layered. It's just like, I'm a killer. I'm going to kill whoever. And this is why I love Michael Myers and think that he's different than like a Jason or whatever. I just feel like he has that. Well, this is why I also like the Michael Myers and Laurie at brother-sister time. Some people don't like that. Right. They like him as just a ruthless killer. I like it because I like the passion, the dedication, the obsession, and the depth to that. So I want a reason. Okay.
I like it. And I agree with you. I think that's, once again, going back to the 2018 film, that's what we lost, right? We lost that brother and sister connection. And I talked about that too, with kind of how I felt Jamie Lee Curtis took that trilogy down, because that was part of it, right? I mean, you lose that, and that's where H2O does such a good job of reconnecting those two for that final showdown, right? So yes. I agree with you 100%. So the Shape, he's killing kids, he's these teenagers at this dance, and he eventually chases Joanne up to this bell tower at the school. And they go, it's 4 floors up, and she finds a body of a janitor up there. It's been stuffed right near the bell. And Kincaid and Gabriel hear this bell ring. So she gets up to this top of this bell tower, and she's trying to get their attention before Michael can get to her. And of course, they come to her. They head towards that bell tower. And then Kincaid shoots Michael, and he falls 4 stories to the ground. So a nod, I guess, if you will, to 78, but then also similar to what they did with H2O, with him getting stabbed and falling over the ledge towards the end of the film. Yeah. So he falls down these four stories, and they go downstairs, and of course, is he there? No, he's not there, right? Michael's gone. So the body is gone. But also, Cain Gabriel has sort of disappeared at this point. So we've lost track of where he was. The detective is now on his own. The detectives get info that this is weird too. So at this point, Kincaid gets a phone call, and he finds out that somehow now the DNA does link this magician back to the crime. Okay, so first he was a suspect, and then they released him because he had some sort of alibi or something like that. And now they're saying, nope, we have DNA. He's the guy who killed this girl at the beginning of the film. And So now the detectives, they finally find Michael in the nearby woods, and they open fire on him. We kind of get this climactic, almost H4 sort of moment where it's just basically the shootout with Michael Myers, and Michael falls dead. They walk up to Michael, peel off his mask, and who is it but Cain Gabriel? So, and Michael's gone. And that's how the film ends. So that's why they call it the two faces of evil, is because, well, and I know you're not a fan of ends. I know you're not the biggest fan of Halloween ends. And we need to talk about that, because we do need to talk about ends before we go tonight. But so you sort of have a Corey-esque character in Cain Gabriel, right? Where maybe Corey wasn't necessarily obsessed with Michael in Ends, but this Cain Gabriel character is. And you now have this Cain Gabriel character who somehow slipped on the mask, and it's very producer cut like of Halloween 6, where it was Dr. Wynn, I think, and he pulls off the mask and it's Dr. Wynn under the mask. So that's two faces of evil. Let's digest this thing, shall we? Because there's a lot to unpack here. First off, what are your initial thoughts?
Just a couple little thoughts.
Yep.
The idea of Michael Myers driving a hearse, I like it. I kind of like that. I think that's kind of badass. Yep. My other note you brought up already is like, why these girls? Why is he stalking these girls? This one in particular. Right. I want a reason. I think that they maybe would have worked a reason in there, but I don't know if I would have been happy with the reason, just because I do like the connection when it's deeper.
Right.
And why are they using the magician to help find Michael Myers? Okay, is he a magician or is he a psychic, or is he because he knows that he's so obsessed with Michael Myers, they're using him and his knowledge of Michael Myers to help find him? Is that how
see? They don't. No, they don't go into that. That's the weird part. It's just like he's like this sidekick, basically, who's tracking down Michael Myers. And I don't know if maybe the intention was because he was like obsessed with Michael and they somehow thought he could. I don't know. I have no idea. But you're right. That didn't make a whole lot of sense.
No. And I kind of just think at this point, what is the point of even having Michael Myers in the movie at all?
Right.
If it's just going to be this dude, then why can't it just be them always thinking it's Michael Myers, but it's the magician? I guess Michael. But then, is it really Michael Myers? Right.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. It brings up a good point. Like, was it Michael Myers the whole time? Right. I mean, and I don't have the answer to it. I have no idea. But you're right. Maybe it wasn't Michael Myers at all. Right. Maybe it was this dude dressed up as Michael the entire thing. So I thought that was interesting because, obviously we just, we got Ends a year and a half ago, whatever. And now we're seeing some sort of not the same story, but a similar story where you have somebody else acting as Michael Myers. And I know you're not a big fan of
that. No, I don't mind I don't mind the copycat type thing as much.
Sure.
There's just parts about Ends that it really, maybe I just didn't understand it, but it like I said, I only seen it once. I still have only seen it once. I know I promised you guys I'd watch it again, and I promised you I will. I just haven't yet. I promise you I will. I need to rewatch it because I took that so literally, like Michael was putting his power into Corey at the time. Right. And I know that's what people are saying. No, that's not what happens. Kind of like he's seeing himself in this and blah, blah, blah. But I just, that seemed like so like supernatural to me in Halloween Ends. And again, I'm probably wrong on it, but that's what it felt like. But if it's copycat type thing, especially if it's the guy's like obsessed, like I think this is why I think if they would have went into that direction, then it would have been interesting to see Paul Rudd. Oh my God, why am I blanking on the characters?
Tommy?
Yeah, Tommy Doyle. Yes. Would have been him in the next one because he's already obsessed. Like, why don't you make Tommy Doyle like the next one? Maybe that's why he wanted the baby so bad. He wanted that baby to like do it. I don't know.
I like that.
I think that if it is something like that in a copycat way, why don't you do that with a character that we already love and then just crush our dreams with that?
That's, you know what? That's an awesome idea, actually. Like, what if they would have done that, right? What if Tommy would have been like, had this obsession with Michael to the point that it actually caused him to go out and start committing these murders as Michael Myers. I like that idea. That's really cool.
I think if you're going to go in that direction, you already have a character that fits the bill from Halloween 6. Like, you already have that. If you want to make him a magician, whatever, maybe he became a kids party magician. And I think that's kind of, it adds a creepy aspect in a way, because it's kind of like having like a clown who does kids parties becoming it. True. But then why not make it a clown? Because it's Michael Myers when he's a kid, he's dressed as a clown. Like that would be, I don't know, it could be too it-like, but I don't know.
No, but you're right. You would get sort of that callback, if you will, to what, that Michael, 6-year-old boy wearing the clown costume. Yeah, that would make more sense. But you're right. there's like an element of a creepy, dude who's doing kids parties as a magician, or the creepy clown thing, or whatever it might be. You're right. That does add like a kind of you're already kind of suspicious of this dude, just, and sorry if there's any magicians out there who we're ripping on. We don't mean it, but there is something creepy about that idea. You're right.
It could be turned creepy so easily. I mean, my dad's best friend was a clown at parties, and we love him. He's a very nice man, but you could easily turn that creepy. So
yep. I completely agree.
And magicians too.
yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I think it's, I mean, now that I think about this more, the idea that he was so obsessed with Michael that because obviously you have, they do show Michael, it's I guess we do know this because he was Michael, or it was Michael killing these kids, or Michael doing this, because they talk about how he dies and then goes off and kills the funeral home workers and stuff. So I guess that does kind of answer that question. It was Michael Myers. So I do agree with what you said, how like if you're going to do the copycat thing, just do the copycat thing, right? I mean, separate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I think also is really throwing me off about the whole magician helping is like that the magician was incarcerated for some reason. Like if he wasn't, and they were like, oh, we know this magician's really into Michael Myers and he's like obsessed with them. He knows like how he works and he knows how he stalks and he knows all this. Maybe he can help us. But the fact that they're like, get you out of jail and then come help us.
Right. Yeah.
We're waiting for DNA, but come help us.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. That's what's weird is like, there's a lot of plot holes here. Right. And that's where I'm sure somebody, and like I said, I think at one point or another, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis got involved and everything went out the window. All these ideas went out the window. But I'm sure somebody read through this and was like, well, wait, why are these, detectives having a magician tag along? Like what are you doing that for? So yeah, I agree with you. There's some plot holes here.
Right. And like you say, maybe we just don't know. Well, we obviously don't know the whole story, but I would have liked to see it be Tommy Doyle instead of Cain Gabriel. I snickered every time you said that name. I don't know why. It's just Cain Gabriel.
Yeah. It's like I said, Peter Gabriel was on my mind the entire time. Every single time it was like, nope, Cain. But yeah, I agree. I love that idea that you have, and I'm trying to think like, so Tommy Jarvis from the Friday the 13th franchise in part 5 I'm trying to remember how part 5 ends. Are you familiar with part 5? Like it's the one with the fake Jason. Doesn't he at the end of that movie, like put the mask on? And do you remember that at all?
I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen a lot of the Friday the 13th actually.
Okay. So, well, I guess my point is that I think they did something very similar with the Friday the 13th franchise, where you had this sort of main character of a previous film or two, where you see him become obsessed and then becomes this killer. But I like that. I do like that idea. And it's funny that you bring up, the Tommy Doyle character, because Austin and I talked about this last week is, they did that character dirty once again in the trilogy, the Tommy Doyle character where, in my mind, he just became an unlikable person. And they could have done, like, I would love to see it. I talked about this last week. I would love to see a Tommy / Lindsay movie, but take it back to like the late 80s, early 90s, or whatever that is, and fill in some of those blanks where they're either post high school or in high school or whatever it might be. And, they have that, but I guess once again, to your point, like you could have done something similar with this, with the Tommy, that Tommy Doyle character, especially coming off part 6, where you just had Paul Rudd as really the one of the main characters in that film.
Yes, and he already seems kind of sketch. Like right. I remember watching him even for the first time. I was like, "Can we trust this guy?" Like he seems a little intense, and I love the way he played it. You can tell he's a little bit traumatized by stuff, but he's really into this, and I think he had the personality that maybe could turn if he got a little too obsessed with it. I think I would. And if Paul Rudd had played it too, man, God.
That would have been. Wouldn't that have been sweet? Like, I love freaking Paul Rudd. I absolutely love Paul Rudd. Yes. Yeah. He's so cool. You're right. And I think like even in part 6, they reference like the girls reference him as like, a strange, whatever they say, like, I think she says like he had some weird stuff happen to him when he was a kid or whatever. But, and I always thought that was weird in that film that, and kind of goes to what we talked about, like his obsession is he's living across the street from the Myers house. You know what I mean? Yeah. He almost got killed as this, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, whatever he was supposed to be in 78. And now he's legitimately living across the street from the Myers house as an adult. It's kind of weird, but it plays into that obsession sort of idea.
It does. And an obsession that could easily go wrong. Cause I mean, usually you'd want to get far enough away if you're like traumatized by it. You like, I can never go down that street again. I never want to see anything again. He's like, anchor me right by that house.
Right. Exactly.
I want to watch it. And it's like, you can easily embody it, like easily.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Feed that obsession. And I mean, what better way to do that than to literally live across the street from the dude the house of the dude who almost killed you when you were 10 years old. And once again, like going to the H2O thing, that's why Laurie is so much more believable in H2O than she is in the trilogy, is because you would maybe, and obviously PTSD is going to affect different people in different ways, but you would expect a more realistic sort of PTSD character, if you will, with the Laurie that you see in H2O, where she has her struggles, she has her addictions, she's trying to deal with this stuff that she dealt, that she had happened to her 20 years earlier, versus this, as we call her, Rambo Laurie, where it's like she's just totally Ramboed out and ready for the apocalypse, basically. It didn't make a lot of sense.
It didn't make a lot of sense. And then, like you say, when she's baking with the apron and the
right. Terrible. Terrible. No.
I was like, is this happening? This was written in the script. This is what you're doing to her. How dare you? And then this is why H2O will always be like, I'm glad they made it, and I'm glad they made it this way. And
I hear you. I totally hear you. What do you think about this the whole end idea where, obviously they're giving that kind of nod, if you will, to the original, where Michael falls from a, high up distance. He falls, Michael's gone, they get down there, and then they eventually find him. But then it's, it is this Cain Gabriel character. Do you like the idea of them finishing the movie and letting Michael get away, or are you, did you like the idea in H2O, or how it happened in H2O, where there was like that finality to the whole thing, where he gets, forget part 8 for a second, right? Like H2O ends, Michael gets his head chopped off. Did you like that more, or do you always like that sort of that hook where, oh shit, he's still alive?
In the case of what's it called? Two Faces of Evil? What?
Two Faces of Evil. Yep.
In that case, in that sort of movie, it feels like a spin-off almost. Like it feels like a separate thing. So seeing Michael get away would be like, yeah, there's going to be another one. He's coming back. It's not over. Right. So that way I'd like to see it, because it doesn't have any like super deep ties to, I mean, it's supposed to be tied to number 6, but there's none of that deep ties to it. Like if it was going to be Tommy, like then it would feel more like, oh God, it'd have a little more depth to it. But since he got away in that one, I'd like to see it. But the way that he went out in, the way he went out. And H2O, that to me, like that's where it stops for me. To me, that is where it stops. And I like that ending. I love that ending. It's perfect for me.
Totally agree. I completely agree that the ending of H2O is without question one of the best endings that we get throughout the entire franchise. Probably only second to, in my opinion, the original, right? Where you get that major cliffhanger where he's gone. But I agree. And not only in H2O do you get that awesome, that axe swing, but then the music, like the original, you get that throwback to that John Carpenter, the original 1978 score. It gives me chills damn near every time I see it, because it's just like that. I love the franchise and I hope they continue making movies, but that really was that was the end of Michael Myers. Much like if you whether you like ends or not, like that sort of that group of movies, the 78 and then the trilogy, that timeline. That was the end of Michael Myers. Like, there's no question in H2O, Michael Myers got his head cut off, and that was it. That was the end. Just like Michael Myers got put in the meat grinder, basically in ends. Like, that is the end.
This is how I look at H2O. At H2O a little more as not just like that's the end of Michael Myers. To me, like that is the end of Laurie Strode's story. Sure. And I think that is exactly where her participation in any Halloween movies ever again should have ended there. Yeah. So for me, I look at H2O not so much like, oh, that's it for Michael. For me, it's like that's the storybook closing on Laurie, and I think that's the perfect ending for her story. And when she's breathing, and you look at her, and she's so like it's over, and she's breathing. You hear her breathing, and it mimics Michael's breathing at the end of the first one. Right. I just like I can't, like it's just it's so good. And so they can keep making Halloween movies with Michael Myers in it. Go ahead. Yep. Do not put Laurie in it anymore. Keep her away.
Yes.
Over.
Yes.
And it should have ended then.
I agree. Is it kind of like, is it sad in a way that fans, because we're not the only ones who feel this way. Like I said, we received a lot of feedback about our podcast last week, and there were a lot of people who were like, yeah, Laurie Strode really kind of, she sort of maybe not necessarily ruined the David Gordon Green trilogy, but she definitely, dumbed it down a little bit. Is that, do you think, should we feel bad as fans that that's happening? Or do you think that's okay for us to be like, no, we're done with this, move on, let that character sort of ride off into the sunset?
There's a little bit of both there. I think I feel done with it, but it makes me sad. Well, it makes me sad even that she was in Resurrection, but
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
That makes me sad too. But then to see her in this trilogy, and it's going to be something fresh for her, apparently, like this is right after the first one, how she was written. And again, apparently she had a lot of input for what she wanted her character to be. I want to know what David Gordon Green had in mind if she didn't like interfere as much. Yeah. But it is sad because #not my Laurie Strode, that's not her. But it's also like, okay, I've seen enough. Like it's gotta end here, please, right. Laurie. Please never come back. Jamie Lee Curtis, like no shade to you. It's just like that trilogy. Right. That wasn't it. That wasn't it.
I think you just you need to like get a T-shirt or something that says that. Not my Laurie. #not my Laurie Strode. That, because that is kind of the way that I feel too. It's just not. It didn't do that character justice. And that was, and I know we're just talking about some of the same things over and over here, but that's where that trilogy just didn't do justice to so many characters. And where if they had built on the Allison character more, and Allison was the main focus of kills and ends, and you forgot the Laurie Strode character, or you moved on past her, they could have done so much more there to build up this new. And quite honestly, I would have liked the idea of like this being the granddaughter of Laurie Strode. And if you had that brother and sister connection, well, here you go. Why is he now after Allison? Well, he's after Allison because that's his family. That would have made way more sense.
I would have liked that trilogy so much more if they kept the family aspect. Because I'm like, why are we following this Laurie around? Why are we following her whole entire family around?
Right.
Keep it in the bloodline. It would have added so much more to the movie. I don't know what David Gordon Green.
I know. Speaking of David Gordon Green, I still have not seen Exorcist Believer. I know the last time you and I talked, you had said, watch it, but be prepared to not be scared. I still have not seen it because, quite honestly, your words of that you said on our live show scared me to the point that I was like, I don't even want to see it because I don't want to be mad. Like, I don't want to watch a movie going into it and just being like, I know I'm going to be disappointed. And then when I get disappointed, now I'm just going to be really angry. Like, so I have not even seen it yet.
Okay. There are some people out there who are like, well, I don't understand the hate. I don't get it. I liked it. Maybe you will. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong with how much I absolutely loathed it.
Sure.
Loathe. Like but if you watch it though, to me, it's, oh no, I just had a flashback of a memory of that movie that I was taking out of my brain. I was gonna say, there's no real connection to the actual action. I'm like, no, wait, yeah, there is. And they ruined it. I want you to watch it. Please just watch it so we can talk about it. I would love that.
I do. I really do. I need to see it, and I will see it eventually. But it's one of those things for me. When you hear such bad things about films like that, I don't want to waste an hour and a half or 2 hours of my time. Just go, you go into it going, and that was a little bit how Ends was. I was so scared to see Ends because I had heard, now granted, you and I have very different feelings on Ends, but I had heard such terrible things about it. And that's why I was pleasantly surprised when I liked it. So maybe I will like it when I see it, but I've been very hesitant to watch it. And you are 100% not 100%. You're like 98% to blame why I haven't seen it yet, but that's okay. So I will watch it at some point.
Okay. I want you to, but there's part of me that also doesn't want you to, because I don't want it to ruin how much do you love The Exorcist? Do you love that movie?
Ooh, I do like it. I do like it. I think I think The Exorcist it's one of those films that it will always be a classic, right? Much like Halloween, much like the original Friday the 13th, or, Evil Dead, whatever it might be, right? It will always be a classic, but I'm not so tied to it, obviously, in the way that I am to the Halloween franchise, if that makes sense.
Totally. Then maybe it won't crush your soul. Okay. It crushed my soul, but maybe it won't crush your soul.
Are you a big Exorcist fan? Like,
that movie is the scariest movie I've ever seen, and it really traumatized me when I first watched it. So I hold it in such high regard, and I think it's like like a masterpiece in a lot of ways, and there won't be anything like it ever again.
Right.
And I know that.
Yeah.
But this was beyond a bad exorcism movie. Like even for an exorcism movie or a possession movie.
Right.
Not good. And they do characters dirty, of course, because David Gordon Green always does.
He finds a way. He does. He finds a way to do that. Well, I will see it eventually. And when I do, I will let you know, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, and I won't be. I'll be thinking, hey, that wasn't so bad. But at least with Ends, I felt like it was a pretty maybe not quite 50-50, but it was a fairly even split of people coming out of the theater saying they didn't like it versus those who did. I don't know that I have personally, and I haven't done a ton of digging into Exorcist Believer, but I really didn't see anybody who said it was awesome. So that's where, Ends might be a little bit different for me. And I just happen to fall into the category of people who, genuinely did enjoy it. So, and it was interesting I think we talked about this on our last live show, when Austin and I went out to H45, just talking, standing in line, you're standing in line for hours on end all day long because you're meeting people or meeting guests or whatever it might be. But talking to a lot of the people out there who said that they didn't like Ends the first time they saw it, they had said they had revisited that film, and they were starting to like it more and more. So Austin and I do have this theory, and I think we've talked to you about this, that we do feel like at some point Ends is going to be maybe accepted a little bit more. So I'm going to watch Exorcist Believer, and you need to watch Ends again and see if it's grown on you.
Okay, I will. The thing is, and I think that Ends would have worked better as the first installment of the trilogy. and then a new story carried on with Laurie not in it, and even
Sure.
Michael not in it. Maybe it's just Corey, maybe it's different people now taking shape. I don't know.
Yeah.
So as a movie, I think it is a better film and a better movie than Kills, for sure.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not a
Kills.
Yes. Kills is, I did rank Kills. We did a re-ranking of the franchise right after Halloween, right when it was fresh in our brains. Kills did move up for me, I think 1 or 2 spots from where I had originally had it ranked, because I think I had it ranked second to last. But it is just, there's just so many, the dialogue, the writing, the evil dies the night crap. Like I can't do it. I don't like it. And it is what it is, but I do agree with you there. That's where I do like, I think Ends is just a much better story, if you will. And David Gordon Green tells that story a little bit better, I think, but.
Yes. Like Halloween Kills is like the gross junk food that makes you nauseous. But then Halloween Ends is like if you order something in a restaurant and you have high expectations, and then I got it and I was like, well, this isn't what I ordered. That's what it was for me. That's what I compare the two.
I love it. That's a perfect analogy. I love it. I love it. That's it, guys. What do you think of Halloween 2 Faces of Evil? Would you have liked to have seen this film? And I know there's a lot of holes, and you guys can, you can do more research on it. I think you can actually even go out and find the script online. But what do you guys think? Would you have wanted to see this film? Are you happy with ultimately what we got with H2O? I know I am. Marie, I have to assume you are as well, right?
Oh, I will live and die by my love for Halloween H2O. But the thing about this 2 Faces of Evil is that this could still get made, and it would make sense, and it would feel like an okay Halloween movie. Maybe fill in some plot holes and tighten it up a little bit, clean it up, maybe throw some Tommy Doyle in there. But
that's true.
It could still get made as a little side Halloween movie. So
that's right. It very well could. And who knows where the franchise is going to go. We're going to get hopefully some more news on that very soon, whether we're getting a TV show or new movies or whatever it might be. But that's going to do it for episode number 48. Obviously a blast, always catching up with you, Marie. Please come back on the show sometime, and we'll definitely have you back on as a guest host as well as we move forward, because there's always opportunities where either myself or Austin can't be here. So we love having you on the show as usual.
Oh, thank you for having me. Anytime you need anyone, I'm here. I'm here to fill the seat for whoever's gone. I'm down.
Love it. Awesome. Guys, that's going to do it for episode number 48. I'm Blaine Duncan, and that is the co-host of episode number 48, Marie. Oh, before we go, where can people find you at? We should give you a shout out.
Oh, people can find me on my YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start, and I have my own show on the Not a Strong Start YouTube channel called Marie Plays It All. We talk about movies and video games and TV shows and geek stuff and paranormal stuff and all that.
Love it. Go check out Marie. Guys, thank you. This is episode number 48. We'll see you next week. Austin should be back as long as his travels go well. He should be back for episode number 49. Once again, I'm Blaine Duncan. That's my friend Marie. You guys take care.